You okay if we record this?
I am, yep.
Okay. So let's just take one of the most familiar weapons in the game. All right, so this first tab, most item types have this tab. Item name, category, the skill logic, what classes can use it, description, weight, buy, sell, how many you can carry, can you drop the item, is the item finite, can expire, for example, like a Steron. This is just some key binding stuff. The rest of this stuff doesn't matter as much. But yeah, there's a lot of little configuration things. So let me pause there. Was there a question yesterday that you had that was related to any of those?
I guess the skill logic number related to certain skill, I guess. What's the equivalent? I'm assuming I could probably figure it out, but I'm sure you got something.
Can you see the pop-up
sort of
that said editing item Maclove AR? I think I may have to share my full screen here.
Yeah, it's giving me a blank.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna just do entire screen. Okay. You can see more now.
I can see your Discord icon.
You can't see anything?
Nope.
How about now?
There you go.
Weird. Okay. So, what the hell? It closed again?
Nope, still good.
Okay, weird. Okay. Click Edit Skill Logic, and it's just gonna map. The numbers are gonna map to the skill names.
I see.
Class ID is just a way of grouping different skills together. You'd have to go into the vehicle editor to know more about that, but not super important right now. Yeah, but you can pick skills. So like, let's say we wanted to change this weapon and also give it to Infiltrator. You can just double click on it and it will fill out that, press done, and bam, it's updated.
And when you say it's updated, you're talking the
file is updated. You actually have to update the file on the server that you're hosting the zone and then recycle it. But we don't need to get into all that just yet. I'm going to just go over the basics for the item editor because that's where most of the work you want to do, I think, is in. All right, so this is the second tab. Okay, actually, before I go on, there are different types of weapons or items. Warp item, for example, summon or teleport, are both warp items. Ammo is just like a very simple item with a couple of things. Repair item is like medikit. Nested's not used very often. Control is like reprogram kit. Multi-item is just a collection of items. Skill item is just it's just an item linked to a skill, basically. So it gives you the skill when you pick up the item or when you prize the item. Upgrade item is just, it detects what's in your inventory and changes it. So you have an input and an output. I can go over more of that later. Utility item is just like armor, improved cloaking, stare on. A lot of items that are just the yellow items are utility items. Item makers are things that spawn on the ground or in your inventory. So like like a Steron kit maker, or autogun turrets are item makers because they produce the autogun item kit, or the kit produces the autogun turrets, and you pick it up, and then that one's a vehicle maker. The vehicle maker is an item that when you press it, it creates a vehicle. So that's the engineer turrets. Multi-use item is it references multiple projectile weapons. So for example, micro missile launcher is a multi-use item. Most weapons are actually multi-use items because there's a projectile that shoots bullet casings. So any weapon that has like a bullet casing that flies when you fire it is a multi-use item because it has a child projectile where it shoots the main weapon, but it also has that effect going on. And then finally, projectile weapons are all your weapons. This is the main item. This is the most complicated one. So pausing. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, moving on. So Maklov. Maklov AR is the store-bought item is a multi-use item. Now, when you go into it, it has two child items. It has the actual 606 bullet, and then it has a shell casing. And you can define the coordinates. So X is like how in front of it you're from. No, actually, X is on the side of your character. Y is how far forward it is. So it's like how far forward from the barrel. Z is height, and angle is relative to the direction you're facing. So most weapons are just gonna have a 0, 0, 0, 0 because they're being spawned out of the vehicle in the way that they're supposed to be. This one is a shell casing, so it's more like further back in the gun, and it's going in like a different direction than what you're firing. So I didn't really go over General Tab 2. Okay, so General 2 is also on a lot of items. You could set the ammo ID, so what type of ammo does it consume? Does it have a required item? So for example, it's not used very often, but like the rifle grenade. The required item of the rifle grenade is Maklov AR MK606. So I'll show you real quick. Required item, AR. And it uses, okay, another thing about ammo ID is that if you want to make it a consumable item, you set the ammo ID to itself. And here's a parameter, ammo use per shot. That's how much of the item it consumes. So most of the time it's going to be 1. It just uses 1 of itself. This is useful to increase more than 1 if you have like a universal type of ammo type that is across different types of guns, and you want certain guns to consume more ammo. It's kind of a weird mechanic. Ammo capacity is the number of shots you can fire before reload. So for a rifle grenade, you get 1 and done, basically, for its own type. But going back to AR, just to compare that to General 2 tab, you see that it has 3 shots before reloads imposed. All right, so moving on. Fire delay is basically the rate of fire the bullets come out, how close they are or how further away. So like a battle rifle is going to have a longer fire delay than an AR. Fire delay other is your weapon switch time. How long before you can fire any other item. Let's see. Some of these are not as important, so I'm not going to go over them right now. Recoil is how much force does your character move every time you fire it. Pre-fire delay is usually 0 unless you want the weapon to have like a pre-fire delay. So like example, heavy weapons. Maklov AC has a 55 pre-fire delay. Now you'll notice, I just want to point this out, a weapon either typically has pre-fire delay or fire delay. It rarely has both, because you don't want to. Basically, they cannot fire this fast because they're gated by this. So yeah, vertical recoil's not almost ever used, but like that was for like jumping items or like a jetpack. Required item amount, typically it's only set to 1. But for example, the turret kits. Let me just scroll down to that real quick. I'll show you under vehicle makers. And sorry if I'm going a little fast if you need me to slow down. Oh wait, no, item maker is the right one. Oh, those don't have required item amounts more than 1. Usually this is just set to 1 if you do have a required item. There's just soccer stuff, not used very often unless you're doing a sports zone. Some of this stuff you can just click into it and see the description down here. I don't know everything, and not everything is used very often. This stuff is not very used very often. Now these 2 checkboxes are very important. Movement cancels pre-fire. One of the biggest setting changes you can make, right? That's make it stand in fire or not stand in fire. So Maklov AR, for example, has this unchecked, but Maklov AC or rifle grenade, we'll go back to rifle grenade, has that checked. You must stand still. Okay, so reloads. This is, I know a good weapon for you to see what this is all about. Shotgun. Shotgun, you'll notice it has 300 normal delay, or it has 100 reload delay. So that's where you can take advantage of the 9 shot or the 7 shot to do a partial reload instead of a full. That's what determines that. And then asynchronous means there's no jam. This is jam, and this is no jam. Any questions so far?
Can you look at medkit? Does movement cancel pre-fire on medkit? Is that checked?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay. Energy cost to fire, pretty straightforward. Maps, zones have 16 different terrain types. They range from 0 to 15. 0 is like your unassigned terrains, so most terrains basically are 0. In CTF, you'll just have to, I would just copy whatever weapons you already have set to that. So yeah, that makes sense, hopefully. Moving on. All right, so this is where we get into the tabs that are very specific to each item type. So repair has its own repair tab, and this is only for repair items. So medikit, the repair type, you can see down here, if you click on the cell, health, energy, or vehicle. That's set to 0. Repair amount is like the absolute amount. You can also do repair percentage. Repair time is how long does it take to actually heal you. Repair distance, you can do negative or positive. Negative heals everybody, positive heals one thing. So if you look at like engineer repair, for example, you'll notice that the repair distance is a positive value because it can only repair one item at a time. So yeah, graphics, every different item type has a different set of graphics. You have icon on most things and pre-fire on most things. Repair has its own specific repair effect. If we go back to projectiles, we're on the projectile tab. I'll go to graphics. Projectiles probably have the most graphic types. You can set the icon, the fire animation, projectile itself, shadow, trail, explosion, pre-fire. Sounds, you can set firing, explosion, bounce, pre-fire. And you can actually preview the sounds. Okay. Now these graphics are messed up because this is an old editor, so it's really hard to see what it's actually going to look like until you get into game. But you can tweak all the visuals here. Animation time, the number of frames, basically in the cycle. Hue, saturation value is just tweaking like the color and the dark lightness. Light permutation is only for graphics that have lights in them. So like Macer, for example, has a graphic that uses the light permutation. Palette offset makes it go like weird colors, basically. That one's kind of confusing, but yeah, probably won't use it very often. All right, any questions before I move on?
So this item file is specific to the zone you're working on, right?
Yeah, this is a CTF's item editor.
Yep.
All right, so projectile is by far the hardest to master, but for the most part, a lot of its stuff you just leave on like unset. You can see there's like just a lot of zeros everywhere. Most of the time, you don't have to mess with it if it's just a straightforward projectile. But the most important things I'll just highlight real quick. Muzzle velocity is how fast it travels. Alive time, how long it lasts, and negative makes it explode every time. Positive makes it disappear. Gravity acceleration. Some zones use gravity acceleration consistently, others do just 0. So like a law in skirmish has a little bit of a gravity as it goes towards the ground. A lot of this stuff is self-explanatory, like bounce count, bounce vertical speed, bounce horizontal speed, inherit. Inherit speed is like how much your speed is on the vehicle influences the overall speed. So a good example of this is a frag grenade. Frag grenade has 1000% speed percent, which is equal to 100 really. 1000 equals 100%. That means 100% of your momentum, you can double the speed by running fully forward. Or if you're perfectly stopped, if you're not moving at all, it'll just travel 2000. And then if you're rolling fully back, it'll travel 0 velocity. Let's see, moving on. So this is a good example of how some of these values are set for frag grenade, right? You can bounce 3 times before it explodes. When it comes to like walls, it can bounce twice on the floor before it explodes. It has an angle 33, so it doesn't travel forward when you lob it. When you lob it, it goes up. How much of its speed does it retain when it hits the floor horizontally, and how much the speed vertically? But also how much speed does it retain when you hit a wall, and so on and so forth. Trail delay is also important. It sets how the trail animates in the game. How spread apart is it, or how like thick is the trail? So like RPG, for example, has a much thicker trail than the frag grenades. So yeah, it's closer together, the smoke particles. Inactive time. Inactive time is like your point blank radius. So how long before you can trigger the projectile onto a character. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like minimum range.
Yeah, exactly. Minimum range. Max live is not used very often, but for example, PC uses that because I thought it did. Maybe it's this one. No. Anyways, you can have a projectile where you can only have a certain limit of them active. Oh, bullet mine, obviously. Any of the mines use this feature. Yeah, see, max life per player, five bullet mines, and then you have to set a category code for it. You can do per team, per level. Anyways, moving on. Projectile tab 2. Most of the time, damage mode is going to be set to enemy, but then you have all these other ones, and I don't think some of these work. So you just kind of have to test and compare to other items that exist. Trigger mode is basically skirmish is a good example of this, where trigger mode is set to everyone on bullets, so your teammates can block your bullets, but the damage mode is set to enemy only, so that you can't hurt your team. If you had everyone set on both of these, then you could just team kill. So most of the time it's going to be damage mode is enemy, trigger mode is enemy. The only situation where the damage mode might be to everyone is if like it's a grenade and you want it to team kill. Okay, explode item. Explode item is really important. This is what tells a projectile to spawn another projectile or spawn a multi-use item which has multiple projectile references. So the grenade, frag grenade, has grenade shrapnel as its explode item. A great example of this is RR canister. RR canister explodes into RR canister child. And RR canister child is just a multi-use item that has Titan Arms MK3SG 8 or 7 different times with different positions, different angles. That's how the shotguns are made. You define one projectile and then you like position all of them, different angles, different positions, etc. All right, back to any questions about all that? By the way, that was a lot.
No.
Okay. Projectile 2, repair item you can set. It's kind of buggy, but basically it would be like it's like the bio dart in skirmish, where it hits your teammate, it triggers on your teammate, and the damage mode is everyone, but it does a repair item effect. This is just radar stuff, so you can kind of set the color of and visuals on the radar of the projectile, and you can define like what it looks like. Anti-effects durations. Okay. I'm gonna go to Haywire Grenade real quick. Haywire Grenade has anti-effect, and it has a recharge. It freezes your energy recharge. It freezes your ability to fire weapons for 400 ticks. The radius right there. Ball stuff isn't used.
So a tick is a millisecond?
A tick is a millisecond, a centisecond maybe. Yeah, because this is like 4 seconds. 400 is 4 seconds, so a millisecond would have been 4,000. Ticks are like centiseconds, I think. But yeah, you can freeze rotation. So like Trank. I'll just go to Trank to show you what the anti-effects are on that one. That one freezes rotation for 100 milliseconds or centiseconds, and it freezes thrust, which is your ability to move. So you independently set rotation freeze and move freeze. Explosion recoil. This is where a lot of the funkiness happens in CTF in particular. So I'm going to go to Plasma Mine, because Plasma Mine is the biggest culprit of this. So the radius you set here, ignore time. Amount of time the vehicle will ignore its own top speed parameter. This is what causes like the crazy physics to happen when you get like jettisoned across the map. If this was set to 0, then your vehicle wouldn't move nearly as far. Directional percent is just the amount of additional force exerted in the direction the projectile is traveling, as a percent of travel speed. Basically, it just affects how much force is depending on which direction you're traveling and which direction it's traveling. Amount of force on the explosion attributed to vehicles. So this is vehicle knockback. A lot of grenades have it. Plasma mines, gravitron, vehicle vertical, amount of force. This isn't used very often, but this causes like an upward effect. These are just Boolean parameters, so either 0 or 1. You just have to experiment with to kind of see what that means.
And a quick question then: a vehicle would be a player, and a turret would be a vehicle as well?
Correct.
So how is it that back in the day we used to be able to plasma mine MG turrets, but now we can't?
You can't recoil. What do you mean? You can't recoil computer turrets.
Oh, okay, I see.
Not every setting it applies equally to computer turrets, because a computer turret is different fundamentally from a car vehicle. I haven't gone into the vehicle editor settings yet, but they are vehicles, but they're different types of vehicles. So the game engine treats them differently. Because they probably didn't want like computer turrets getting recoiled around. Wouldn't be very good gameplay. Okay, I was gonna say weapon recoil is repulsor field. This is the amount of force on the explosion attributed to weapons. So this is what deflects projectiles. Weapon duration is the bubble effect. Like how long does that repel effect last? So for it's 50 milliseconds. Used to be 0 and older versions. Like you used to just be able to hit repulsor recoil and it didn't continue to buffer, you know. I honestly think this is the most dumb thing about CTF. My personal gripe about it. All right, damage is the last section for projectile. So these are all just different weapon types. Energy is like the most different from all the rest. So energy, everything has an inner and outer. You know that already. You know how inner and outer works, I think, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, just for future people maybe who might be watching this video, inner is how close to the center of your vehicle versus outer. It's like it's some mathematical formula that determines, you know, if it's at the outermost edge, then it does the lowest amount of outer damage. If it's at the innermost, it does the highest inner damage, and then it does everything in between. Most damage types are going to be set to hit points. Energy mode stays energy. The defaults I don't really ever touch, but there are ways to create zones that have multiple types of energy damage types, but I don't think it's ever been utilized. Bypass means it just goes straight to it bypasses shield suit energy. All right, I mean that pretty much explains projectile. Projectile is the hardest. Let me collapse all these. Is there any item types you want me to go over that I haven't? Like utility is pretty complicated. Probably the next most complicated. All right, so CMP6. All your armor stuff is down here. Ignore percent. Start mode. Always on for armors. Start on or off is for toggleable utilities. I'll just go to like the common weapon types. So PF generator. PF generator is on or off. Here's the energy consumption rate right here, recharge. it has a category code because you want generators to be in the same category code. So 20 IDF is in 20, EMP is in 20, because you don't want somebody to be able to have multiple generators. All right, moving on to enhanced filters. Is currently not doing anything, it looks like. Oh no, that's psionic protection, which is biochem. Let me just go to improve cloak. Improve cloak. Anti-cloak distance is where you set the cloak range. Oh, I'm sorry, that's how far you see other cloakers. My bad. Cloak distance is actually how close somebody has to get to you to see through your cloak. 0 can be always cloaked. Cloak distance time, or cloak disable time, that's what that means. How long after firing a weapon this cloaking device is disabled. Stealth, same thing for that as that, but after you fire a weapon, how long is your stealth disabled? So right here, anti-stealth, how far away you see through stealth. Oh, that's stealth detection. Stealth distance, 0. So that means you're always stealthed on the radar, unless you fire, which is determined right here. So let me go to stare-on injection because it has a couple of other things. Stare-on uses the speed adjusters, so vehicle top or spent, vehicle thrust, and rotate. Pretty self-explanatory. There's line of sight utility items. They're not used very often. You can adjust weight. You can adjust strafe. Combat awareness time is how long you continue to see somebody after they've like left vision. So you could have an item that gives you like infinite combat awareness time, and if you gain sight of somebody, you'd never lose sight of them, for example. But it would be completely broken. Anyways, that's pretty much. I mean, most of the other items are really simple. They're very straightforward. Like item maker is literally just this. Select the item you want to make, the quantity. Negative means it creates it in your inventory. Positive means it creates it on the ground. Reprogramming kit. 2 parameters. How close do you have to be to control it? How long do you maintain control of it? I know it's bugged right now, but yeah. Multi-items just reference basically other items. They have a couple other things here, modifiers, but this basic, for example, is in the store, and it gives just a collection of items. You can list up to 16. Anyways, any questions about anything else?
So this is the CTFPL item file. Is there other item file types that you can use to reference if you're wanting to make a different item?
Yeah, I'd highly recommend, like, if you're working on a new zone, experiment with just loading other zones and playing around with items in the store. And then if you see something you like, then you can always try to like import it into a different item set. Now, when you're importing stuff, what you're going to want to do is go to the item here and click add whatever the item type is. So let's say you're importing a projectile item. You need to go through the menu. By the way, you don't have to fill all this stuff out when you're first creating a weapon. But if you just name it something, test, it will create the whole thing, and it will go here. So now you can take note of the item ID, and then what you have to do is open. So all the editors, I was going to say, they are text files for the most part, except for the map editor. So I'm going to show you what it looks like here in a second. Okay, so this is the CTF item file, and it's actually a CSV file under the hood. If you go to, I'm going to just do this. I'll scroll to the bottom. When you create a new item, it's supposed to be on the bottom, but for some reason it is not. So, wondering why that is. Oh, because I didn't save it. That's why. One second here. Okay. Okay, so you have the test item saved?
Yep.
Okay, what was my point here? Oh, okay, so let's say you're opening another item editor and you want to just copy a line and input it into CTF. That's what you have to do, is input the thing, paste it in. But you're going to want to be sensitive to the ID, because if you paste in one from a different zone, it may share an ID with one that already exists in this zone. So you want to make sure it's a brand new ID, and the only way to really do that is to go into the editor and click Add Projectile, give it a name, and then go through the prompt, and it will generate an ID.
So in my files in the free infantry folder, I got, looks like Bug Hunt, Cortez, CTF 2024, CTF PL, Dodgeball, HC 2024, iOS, and a couple USL ones. Is there like an archive of all of them somewhere?
Of all
like
the
EOL?
Oh yeah, on GitHub. Free infantry GitHub. Just Google free infantry GitHub. See. Okay. What you're looking for is playable zones. So this is the repository of all playable zones. Oh, I know. This is the wrong one. Hold on. Zone assets. So in here you have a bunch of map files. You have completed zones. You have incompatible zone archives and orphaned archives. So complete zones is where most of the gold is, because it's a verifiable set of working files. Here's all the versions of CTF throughout the years. Alioth and Twin Peaks, Heinrichs Point. I forget exactly which one is which. Alioth is obviously here. There's CTF PL, there's CTF TPX, which is a spinoff I did. CTFX, original one. I'm not sure what CTFX2 is. There's EOL Classic, EOL RPG, Fleet, Frontlines. You get the picture. There's tons of different zones that nobody plays anymore. It's sad. Anyways,
and the EOL zone was working or not working currently, which is why it was taken down.
Chaos and EOL is working.
Just nobody was playing it.
Well, yeah, that's just true for almost the majority of zones.
I know I saw a mode was working on like an updated EOL, so that's where I was assuming that EOL did not work.
Fair enough. But I'm gonna end this video unless you had any other major questions about what we went over.